Hi everyone, we've got a very special, very exciting guest on the show today. Someone we've wanted to get on for a long time. That's the brilliant comedian Paul Sinha. He was absolutely hilarious on the show, as predicted. He is, of course, a comedian, as well as being a champion quizzing mastermind on such things as The Chase. And he's got a book out with possibly the best title for a book ever, One Sinha Lifetime. See what he's done there. And that, too, is fantastic. It's very, very funny. It's also very moving. It's a memoir. It's about his really, truly fascinating and up and down life. Would highly, highly recommend it. That's One Sinha Lifetime. Look it up. Get it now. Hope you enjoy the show. We had such a good time with him. Hello and welcome to another episode of No Such Thing as a Fish, a weekly podcast coming to you from the QI offices in Holborn. My name is Anna Tashinsky and I'm sitting here with Andrew Hunter-Murray, James Harkin and very special guest Paul Sinha. Hi Paul.
Hello, this is very exciting for me. Finally made it through the door.
Well, it's great to have you. And we are here again with our 4 favourite facts from the last 7 days. And in no particular order, here we go, starting with you, Paul.
Well, it's the Olympics at the moment, and so this is tangentially connected to the Olympics. I've always been fascinated by the Olympics and what it means to people, but I'm perhaps more fascinated by people who've taken part in the Olympics, and it's nowhere near the biggest thing that's happened to them in their lives. So this is a man called Michel de Carvalho, and I can say with almost absolute certainty that you won't know that Michel de Carvalho was both a British Olympic skier and a British Olympic luger. But several years after his sporting career came to an end, he got absolutely lucky by marrying the person who is now the Netherlands' richest, not woman, but person, the heir to the Heineken empire, Charlene de Heineken. He married her, so he's worth billions, which is good. But that's not the greatest fact about Michel de Carvalho. The greatest fact about Michel de Carvalho is he achieved a fame before he was an Olympian. He is the only surviving cast member of Lawrence of Arabia. As a kid, he was a child actor.
Wow.
He appeared as Peter O'Toole's friend and child servant. Farage, I think his name was.
Really?
Weird. Spelt differently.
And he's always sort of like sending other tribespeople back to their traditional land where they came from. Yeah, it's always a very
But
uncomfortable.
he was in
film.
Lawrence of Arabia, and he's not even that old now. I think he's in his
What's
70s.
next to come? You know, he's done Lawrence of Arabia, Olympics, married the richest person in the Netherlands. There must be-
Strictly.
That's it. That's the only thing left. It's the only amount left to conquer.
But it's part of a fascination I have with people for whom, they were in the Olympics as well. As a sort of as a side category of things they've done.
I wonder what she's most proud of. I mean, I think in preparation for this, Andy, in fact, you may have browsed a bit of Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah,
That's-
Andy sent us a message, a WhatsApp, at 11 p.m. saying, I'm just starting to watch Lawrence of Arabia. And we know that 11 p.m. is past his bedtime anyway.
It is. Already I was pushing, I shouldn't have had the Oval team before I started watching.
Were you searching for female characters?
Not for very long. Right, so just before we start, yes, okay, I am currently halfway through Lawrence of Arabia. If I'd been watching Rear Window, I would have finished it by now, but I wasn't. I'm about 2 hours in, and I'm watching the proper version, which is 3 hours 47. Please, can nobody spoil the end of the First World War for me? I don't want to know how it ends.
Happily.
Great.
There's a bit of a spoiler at the beginning, though, isn't there?
The film begins, the opening scene is him getting on his motorbike and then dying.
Oh, no
and
way.
then it's like whip pan back to... Has anyone else seen Lawrence of Arabia?
No.
A long time ago.
Okay.
So when I was a kid, I was made to watch it, and
Really?
I've willfully forgotten it. Do you remember this boy, Carvalho, this friend?
He's a big character.
Is
Oh,
it?
is he?
Yeah, there are 2 sort of manservants, or sort of like kind of teenagers, they're kids who are following him around and, they love him and they want to be with him. They follow him into the desert on their camels. Oh my goodness, there are so many camels. I'm sorry, if you like camels.
I mean, it fails the Bechdel test, tragically, because the 2 female camels in it taught nothing took nothing other than their love life.
There is not a single woman in it, with a speaking role, right?
So
In the first half.
There's a bit where they're setting off into the desert, all the men, and there are some women seen wailing from a distance, but they're seen at such a distance that you can't tell. You really can't tell. And
They could
shot,
be men with wigs.
They're shot in silhouette as well, and from behind. I mean, yeah, those are the only female voices that have made their way into the film so far.
I
It's quite
think,
blokey.
because as you mentioned, you watched the proper one, and there are various versions. And I think in the longest one, which was released in about the early 80s, I think, which was the original one that David Lean wanted to release, I think there are some women in the big massacre scene. Apparently, there are some female corpses.
Maybe they'll do a remake, like with Ghostbusters.
An all-female.
All-female Lawrence of Arabia.
I love it.
Laura of Arabia.
Well, that was one of the famous quotes about it. Was after the premiere, I think it was Noel Coward. He approached Peter O'Toole, who is unbelievably good-looking in the role. He's just sort of beautiful. And Noel Coward went up to him and said, "If you'd been any prettier, they'd have had to call it Florence of Arabia." But it is very good, though.
Is it?
It's very good. It's
It's a cinematic masterpiece, but it's not one you'd watch twice.
No.
No.
It's one of those ones where you watch it and you're like, oh, that's where they got Dune from. Oh, that's where Star Wars comes from. Oh, Mad Max. That's all. Like, it's all.
Is it?
It's
Oh,
all
really?
You just, yeah. You can see it's sort of. It's the.
Are you just saying that? You just named a bunch of films that are sort of set in the desert. Are you just saying that because they said... That's just
Priscilla.
a
That's
coincidence,
not Priscilla. Thelma and Louise. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. One of the things Lawrence of Arabia is responsible for is the King of Jordan. This is nice.
Oh, yeah.
So I think current King of Jordan was conceived as a result of this film.
Did you find it had that effect on you, Andy?
No, I didn't.
That's a long time, isn't it? 3.5 hours.
You get bored.
Oh, another camel.
There's genuinely one camel journey which takes 40 minutes.
Is there?
And it is with brief interruptions for conversation, but it is almost all camel.
I don't know what you're expecting from a film called Lawrence of Arabia.
You're right.
There's not enough car chases.
Well, it starts with a very exciting motorbike scene.
Yeah,
and
true.
I thought, oh, great, it's just going to be chopper action. No,
So King of Jordan's parents looked at it. Speaking of humps, darling.
Brilliant.
And then...
it's King Hussein of Jordan, the previous one. He had lent a load of his soldiers to the film. So lots of the people you see as extras in the film playing soldiers are soldiers from the Jordanian army. And he visited the set because he was very keen, he was an enthusiast, and he fell for a young woman, a British secretary who was working on the film. Obviously not in front of the camera. She was called Antoinette, and they got married in 1962, the year the film came out, and their eldest son became the King of Jordan in 1999.
Abdullah.
Abdullah
Yeah,
II.
Abdullah II.
Yeah, so that's a happy ending.
So the movie's based on a book, Seven Pillars of Wisdom, which is T.E. Lawrence's biography.
Autobiography, right?
Autobiography, yeah.
Yeah, we should say he was a real guy.
Yeah.
Just in case any listeners don't know who T.E. Lawrence was. He was a British intelligence officer, and he'd been an archaeologist and a photographer in Arabia. He loved the area so much. And then during the war, he joined the army, became an intelligence officer, and his big thing was he was lobbying for Arabian independence, but it turned out the British and French had already kind of carved up the area. There was an agreement called the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and sort of dividing the Arabian world into spheres of influence. So he felt very, very let down after the war because his Arabian cause had been betrayed, and he felt like he'd let everyone down. But he's a really, really interesting guy.
And what happened to that Sykes-Picot agreement? I believe it all ended up well in the end.
Have you seen Lawrence of Arabia 2?
Is the one?
There is one.
Oh.
What?
Genuinely. There's a sequel film.
This ghost emerges from the motorcycle track.
It's called A Dangerous Man, Lawrence After Arabia.
Okay.
Straight to video,
Oh, yeah.
early 90s. It's him in Paris. It's Lawrence in Paris, basically. Guess who plays, this is just a casting guess, Lawrence in the 90s version of Lawrence of Arabia.
Paul Nicholas.
I don't know who that is.
Was he in EastEnders?
Yeah.
That's Paul Nichols. He was my first ever
Paul
crush.
Nicholas from Just Good Friends.
Oh,
Not Paul Nichols, although they're both in EastEnders.
Well, actually, it was Ross Kemp, but you're very close. No, of course it wasn't Ross Kemp. It's perfect casting for if you're trying to cast piercing blue eyes, golden shimmering hair.
Yeah.
Pat Sharp.
Jude Law?
Oh, close. Rafe Fiennes.
Oh, Rafe. Oh,
And
right,
it's
yeah.
like very young, very handsome Rafe Fiennes being,
Really?
Right.
The real Lawrence of Arabia looked nothing like that. It was 5'5", very unprepossessing looking.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Just on the film Lawrence of Arabia, which I think was much more fun to be involved in than the actual being Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
They had a whale of a time. Peter O'Toole and Omar Sharif had so much fun together and ended up great friends. And Peter O'Toole, who claims he slept with 1,033 women in his life, true to form on that film, him and Omar Sharif had women flown out for them at weekends.
Yeah, well, there were none present.
They must have been so gutted when they took the first look at the cast. You are kidding me.
Oh no, these are all camels. Sorry, they're all called Flossie, but they are all camels. Wow.
No, they did. They had a great time. And Omar Sharif sounds like such a fun character. He was from Egypt and he was sent to a British school there because he was fat and the British food was so bad. His parents thought, this will get him thin.
Best schools in the world. Yep.
This will
Okay.
sort him out. His grandson said he had 2 areas of expertise, bridge and sex. And he actually taught his grandson about the birds and the bees. And he said, making love is like playing bridge. You either need an incredible partner or a really good hand.
Very strong. And you will need 4 people.
When I was a kid, I think he did the bridge column in the Sunday Times magazine.
Really?
That's
Omar Sharif.
he's
No way.
When they say he played bridge, he played bridge. I mean, he's one of the best players in the world.
No way.
Wow.
Oh no, the man's a proper polymath.
Olympians?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unusual, weird Olympians?
Yeah, go for it.
Bob Anderson?
Bob
The darts
Anderson.
player.
No. This is the problem. You know so many people, Paul.
I know,
If I
it's-
say
it's-
any
it's-
2 names.
What's interesting was Bob Anderson, the world darts champion of the late 80s or early 90s. He was a junior javelin thrower, so I thought maybe I missed the fact that he'd gone to the Olympics.
No.
Right. Actually, I know where you're going with this, Andy, because I found this as well. We're looking for someone who used an item which is longer than a dart and shorter than a javelin,
Yes.
A knife and fork. He did eating at the
but
Olympics.
the same shape as both.
Yes. God, that's a very good clue. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just, my mind is blown from the fact there's a Bob Anderson who did darts and javelin. What the hell? And then there's someone in the middle who did something in between.
So this Bob Anderson, who's not a dart or a javelin player,
Yeah.
he was an Olympic
Fencer?
bingo.
Yeah.
And he was also in a movie doing what?
Lightsabers.
Bingo.
Correct.
He played Darth Vader.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
He's the
that's
third
why
man
I
to
know
play
the
Darth Vader.
name.
Yeah.
Wow.
He did all the fight scenes with the lightsaber, as in the big costume. So
I think I would like to see Darth Vader throwing darts, actually.
Darth Vader.
Dar-
There's his nickname for the Yoki. Brilliant.
How did I not get that?
And did they hire him solely on his fencing skills? Because I suppose Darth Vader, he doesn't have a face, does he? So or his face is covered.
I
So you don't
assume
need to be able
so.
to act.
Well, he was a major Hollywood sword fighting choreographer.
Okay.
So he did
Yeah,
loads
yeah.
and loads. Like he would choreograph fights, and sometimes he did the fights himself if it was a costume thing, and it was because he'd been a fencer in his.
He worked on The Three Musketeers, The Princess Bride, The Mask of Zorro, Lord of the Rings, and Die Another Day.
Oh, which were all
Brilliant.
inspired by Lawrence of Arabia, weren't they?
Odd Job in Goldfinger
Yeah, I know about that one.
Was he
Wade-
Olympian?
yeah.
1948.
Another
48.
famous darts thrower, right? Hold on, was it him who threw darts?
48 was like he throws
He
his hat.
throws his
Yeah, yeah.
hat.
Sorry.
So discus.
That's not exactly how you throw a discus, how he throws his hat.
He sort of curls it. It's like he throws it frisbee style.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I see. Discus is the other way around.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
He was a weightlifter, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Silver medalist, actually. Silver medalist,
Really?
48.
I always like how who's the guy in the Goonies? The Hey you guys, that guy. He was an American football player and won 2 Super Bowls.
Oh, wow.
The guy who plays is it Chunk? in
I have
the
not
Goonies?
seen the
Never seen it.
Goonies.
Have you not seen the? Oh, now. Okay, if you want to see classics, the Goonies.
Alan Turing, almost an Olympian.
Turing.
Very close.
Chess.
Yes.
Yeah, no, actually. He was a really fast runner. He came 5th in the Amateur Athletics Association Marathon in 1948, almost qualifying him for the Olympics. And he actually did beat, in a running race, the silver medalist that year.
Wow. What year?
48.
What after the war?
48, 48 is a
Yeah,
big year.
post-
It was Andre Agassi's dad boxed for Iran. in 1940.
What?
Andre Agassi's dad represented Iran at boxing in 1948.
I remember, Paul, you posted on social media once about Andre Agassi and Ginger Rogers. What's that
Oh,
fact?
this is, Ginger Rogers played in the US Open tennis mixed doubles.
Did she do it backwards and in high heels?
It's really bizarre.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like Ginger. I mean, she wasn't that good a tennis player. She just happened to take part one year.
And her
Without-
partner was Brooke Shields' grandfather or
Something very odd, yeah.
something? Who was married to Andre
Married to
Agassi.
Andre Agassi.
Something
Yeah.
really, really
It's
odd.
so weird.
So, sorry, 1948 had Odd Job, Andre Agassi's dad.
Was Odd Job 48? as
48.
well?
Odd Job was
yeah,
48.
yeah.
Odd Job was 48. Andre Agassi's dad was 48. Yaroslav Drobny, who won Wimbledon for Egypt, were men's singles for Egypt in the 50s, played ice hockey for Czechoslovakia in 48.
We are getting more obscure now, aren't we?
And almost Alan Turing.
Almost Alan Turing.
And then I've managed to find somebody who was in the Olympics in 1948, and it's not even mentioned on his Wikipedia page. No.
Okay.
A guy called Andrei Vortikin, who is an engineer who designed the Atomium in Brussels.
No.
The man who designed the Atomium in Brussels played field hockey for Belgium in the 1948 Olympics.
And the first ever international No Such Thing as a Fish gig was
That's true.
at
Yes.
the Atomium in Brussels. We brought it home.
Nice.
And we think it's based on an atom, but it's actually just 6 hockey balls, isn't it? Apparently. Okay, it is time for fact number 2, and that is my fact. My fact this week is that Samuel L. Jackson once locked Martin Luther King's dad in an upstairs room, then gave him a ladder to escape out of the window.
We're back to connections.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So this was at Morehouse College, which is a black American college, and there was a student protest there, and Samuel L. Jackson, he was a very active student, and he's protesting at the idea that it's this black college, but they're being sort of groomed to be very successful in a very mainstream kind of white society way. So it's extremely high achieving Morehouse College. It's, it's turned out extraordinary people. And I think their demands were things like, look, we want a black studies program, we want a black board of trustees, involvement with black communities.
So a black board of trustees, not a black board of trustees. It is an educational establishment. We want to get this clear.
That's where the confusion arose. And so they bought loads of blackboards and then, yes, a black space board of trustees. And anyway, they decided the best way to achieve this is to kidnap the members of the board. And one of them was Martin Luther King's dad. And so they kidnapped them and they locked them upstairs. I think it was 2 stories up. And they bought padlocks and they took chains from Keep Off the Grass signs on campus to sort of padlock them in. And then Martin Luther King's dad, Martin Luther King Sr., started getting chest pains. And quite heartlessly, in the interview I read with Samuel L. Jackson, he was like, well, look, we didn't want to unlock any of the doors because the protests had to go on. So instead, they got the ladder that the neighbouring girls' school had used to climb up to that window as part of the process, put it up to the window, said to him, slide down that, mate, take yourself to a doctor. And so he did.
And they were connected, Samuel L. Jackson and the King family, weren't they? As in,
Yeah, they were.
I know he was at the funeral.
he was at the funeral. He was a pallbearer, Samuel L. Jackson, at Martin Luther King's funeral.
Yeah.
And he'd been involved in student protest and student politics and black
Yeah,
activism and all that kind of stuff.
And the
So-
funeral happened at this college.
Yeah.
He was very politically active, Samuel L. Jackson, for a while. He was actually made to leave Atlanta because the FBI were after him.
Really?
It's an amazing story where the FBI came and knocked on his mum's door and they said, get your son out of Atlanta or someone's going to kill him. And he went to LA, and that was sort of where he picked up some show business.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All I know about him is he likes playing golf.
Does he?
Yeah.
Of course he does.
Have you got a list?
I mean, I know one very important fact about him,
Go on.
which is that when I was on a final chase once, I was asked what is Samuel L. Jackson's middle name, and I went Leroy, and Bradley said correct, and I've never felt more ashamed at getting a question right in a final chase. I felt I'd been rewarded for racially stereotyping in a way that didn't justify reward.
He had a stutter as a child
did he?
as well. Yeah. He said that the one word that he says to get him out of a stutter is
Oh, I know what this is.
Snakes?
snakes. Is that what you associate Samuel L. Jackson with?
What's the
Snakes
word
on
you
a plane?
associate with snakes?
Snakes on a plane?
Okay, what's the
Plane.
other
I gotta
word?
get these
Hiss.
snakes off this plane.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
These days he doesn't stutter as much, but if he ever does start stuttering, all he has to do is say that word, and it will get him out of it.
Okay, I read this on his IMDb. It's that he has his own wig consultant.
Oh yeah.
And I did a little bit of digging. I don't think it's his own wig consultant because I don't think he's on an exclusive contract with Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay.
No,
But
he
he
does
did-
wigs for loads of people, doesn't he?
He does wigs for loads of people. He's had lots and lots of on-screen hairdos.
I
And
know. If you say my agent, they might be agents for other people as well, but they're still your agent.
That's true.
yes, but if I said I have a plumber, it'd be weird. So, like,
Wait, what do you mean? The same thing applies, Andy. Your own plumber is not exclusive to you, is
Yeah,
he?
you say my plumber came round.
yeah, but it would be weird if someone wrote a fact sheet about me saying he has his own plumber. This guy who's very
Elton
good.
John is probably the only person I can imagine has his own plumber.
Exactly.
Not even the king. Elton John.
Anyway, so I looked up this guy, this hair consultant
yeah.
and stylist, and he's worked for loads of famous people. Anyway, his name is Robert L. Stevenson. Guess what the L stands for? It's Louis. He's Robert Louis Stevenson.
That's brilliant.
Yes, he is named after the Treasure Island author.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Well, you must be. Like, there's no way you would accidentally come up with that name.
He was only the third male hairstylist in the Hollywood Union.
Really?
Yeah.
See.
So, just stick that in your pipe and smoke it. Yeah.
Maybe he
I
should
could have
be
sworn he was the
famous
first. You think you know a subject?
It's amazing what you learn on this show, isn't
I
it?
just think. On a more serious note, I didn't realise until I was reading about him that his life was in ruins, wasn't it? Addicted to cocaine and heroin.
Yeah.
It made me think that perhaps this is what we need to be doing for all drug addicts. Is
Make them into Hollywood stars.
Making them into film stars.
Good
because-
idea.
Are you saying you should go down to the job centre or at the job centre when people come to you, they say, I'm in a real difficult place, addicted to drug, I'm unemployed. The advice should be, have you considered becoming a film star?
Or what jobs have you got? Well, we've got a role playing Prince Faisal. No, I'll play Lawrence, thank you very much.
And the other thing is he wasn't considered an especially good actor until he got into films. His career wasn't really going anywhere in particular.
Who, SLJ?
SLJ.
From SLJ to MLK?
Yeah.
Ah, good segue.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah.
He tried to get sent to school a year early and was foiled by the teacher when he accidentally mentioned that it was his 5th birthday was coming up.
Was he responsible for registering himself
I
at
think
school?
he was actually-
Was it like those First World War things where you say I'm 14 and they say, "Oh, walk around the block and tell me you're 18 when you come back"?
What's nice about that is if he was, then he's proved that he's precocious enough to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
they put him straight into 6th form. It was him and his dad, senior,
Okay.
in fact, sort of plotted together to get him let in because he was keen to go to school.
Was he keen to go to school or was his dad keen to get him out of the house? Because I can think of any reason I would send my daughter to school early and that would be it.
He kept telling his dad about his dreams. It was so annoying. He just,
No
you know
one
what it's
cares.
like. Other people's dreams. Boring.
He said his main weaknesses were food and women, so there's
50% there.
Wow.
which pissed off his dad actually.
He said this as a grown man, not as a 5-year-old. Because if as a 5-year-old boy said that to me, you'd call the social, wouldn't you?
He was precocious.
No, he had a lot of affairs, didn't he?
He did,
Yeah.
and he loved to dance. Food, women, dancing. Loved to dance the jitterbug, which I think we might have talked about the fact it was very controversial, and his dad once, cringe, turned up when he was dancing the jitterbug in front of a bunch of women, seized him and dragged him off the dance floor.
Wow.
This is another really bizarre connection. Much like the King of Jordan being due to Lawrence of Arabia.
Abdullah II.
Yep. Martin Luther King is responsible for Julia Roberts existing.
Is that true?
It is.
Okay.
So someone had sex while he was doing this speech?
He
I had a dream that Richard Gere came along.
he paid for the hospital bill when she was born.
Oh,
Really?
So he's not
yeah.
he's not responsible for her being born, but her parents are. But he paid it because her parents had an acting school in Atlanta, and they had been very welcoming to King's own children. So the families knew each other, and so when Julia Roberts was born, Martin Luther King stumped up for the bills. Nice.
See, he's contributed so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The non-violence sort of element of King's philosophy was really interesting. The Montgomery bus boycott was a sort of really famous one of his campaigns, and it wasn't initially planned as a Gandhi-style campaign of non-violence, but after the Rosa Parks, after she was arrested on the bus, the campaign was kind of adjusted, and he hadn't originally known much about Gandhi or Gandhi's campaigns, which were famously non-violent. He had lots of guns, for example. He once applied for a permit to carry a concealed weapon because he was very worried about his safety, correctly, no doubt. But once in 1962, at one of his events, one of his rallies, a 200-pound white Nazi Party member called Roy James jumped on stage and hit him in the face, at which point he lowered his hands and kept talking and spoke calmly and didn't try to protect himself, it's quite striking reading about the
It is.
the
but-
extent of his commitment to non-violence and showing non-violence in front of a large audience.
I mean, I'm not going to defend this man, but £200 is not that big.
No, you're right. It's not actually. I don't know. I mentioned it. I apologise. I fat shamed a Nazi, and I shouldn't have done. Yeah. No, fair enough. Wow. Why have I come out as the bad guy in this story?
As someone who's been £200, I take a massive offence to
You
that.
know what? I don't know what £200 is in old money. So,
14 stone 4.
oh, that's nothing. Okay, sorry.
£200 is old money. It's just lower denominations, isn't it?
Okay.
It's just got to divide it by 14.
Sorry, I wouldn't have bothered saying a 14 stone Nazi party member because that's totally ordinary.
In fact, Martin Luther King may have been bigger. We don't know.
Yes, good point. Okay. Personally, I still think it's impressive.
Yeah.
But I take your point, everybody. Thank you.
The way my brain works as well, I can't get rid of the fact that the march depicted in the film Selma, the march from Selma to Montgomery, is the most famous march that was from one Simpsons character to another Simpsons character.
Such a good point. That's what it was really about.
That's very funny.
I just have a thing on random celebrity connections that actually it feels so trivial-y. I wonder if Paul knows about it. Do you know what the Erdos-Bacon number is?
Oh yeah, Paul Erdos, the mathematician, and Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, this is so cool.
The star of Footloose and the possible reason I'm gay.
Interesting.
Having watched Footloose at a very tender moment in my life. It's a combination, isn't it? And someone really famous has got an Erdos-Bacon number of 2 or 3. Is it Natalie Portman?
That's so good. It's not 2 or 3 would be a lot, but Natalie Portman, yes.
Is it that you add them together?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like if you've been in a paper with Paul Erdos or someone who's been in a paper with him, or if you've been in a film with Kevin Bacon or someone who's been in a film with him.
Exactly. So how many connections do you make between Paul Erdos and Kevin Bacon? And as you say, Natalie Portman has an Erdos-Bacon number of, I think it's 7, but it's still good. Because
pretty good.
She's the only celebrity I could find who was a genuine academic, and that's her connection. Because she actually wrote a paper when she was in school.
There is another one as well. It's much more obscure. She played Winnie in The Wonder Years. I'm pretty sure that the actress who played Winnie in The Wonder Years has an Erdos number of some description.
Is she the one with dark hair in The Wonder Years?
I think so, yeah.
She's the reason that I'm straight. Because that was on when I was like 5 years old or something.
And is she an academic, or was there a consultant on the film or something who was...
She's definitely done a maths paper either with him or one connection to him.
Cool, because I thought the most spurious one was Colin Firth, who has an Erdos-Bacon number of 6, because he's credited as co-author of a neuroscience paper after he suggested on Radio 4 that a study could be done about it. So he mentioned Radio 4, hey, someone should look into this. It's the title is Political Orientations Are Correlated with Brain Structure in Young Adults. So I haven't actually heard about Radio 4, but I'm guessing he says, oh, I wonder if people with different political views' brains look different. Should we talk about
him.
And they credited him as co-author, yes.
That's fair enough. He came up with the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Credit's a credit.
Yeah, you're right.
One of Martin Luther King's long-term lovers was Dot Cotton.
What?
Excuse me?
Her name was Dot
Her
Cotton.
name was Dorothy Cotton.
Right.
It wasn't Dot Cotton from EastEnders.
I think of her as the sort of reason that you're straight, Andy. Someone like her. Okay, it's time for fact number 3, and that is Andy.
My fact is that top football teams sometimes travel with their own grass.
And you're referring to the drug?
No.
The surface?
Oh, or I was thinking of people who tell tales.
Oh, yeah. Their own copper's narc.
I would say John Terry was probably one.
Oh, yeah. Do you reckon?
He had the feel of a copper's narc about it.
It's probably a long-term undercover cop trying to expose, I don't know, socialism in the team. No, they take... This is so weird. Okay, so this happened just now. We've had a tournament, right? It was, what was it, the Euros?
We don't like to talk about it, but yeah, it was the Euros.
But you did all right, didn't you? Yeah. Anyway.
Are you being Scottish now?
I think I am, yeah.
Oh, well, you don't want to be Scottish in the Euros.
This was an initiative by the FA. So they had a pitch in Blankenheim, which is where their training camp was. And that was seeded in April... some months ago with turf that was used in London, and I guess it was London seed as well, Wembley seed. It was full-size pitch, fertilised, level, given a haircut. So they were training on...
Isn't that strange? Why wouldn't you train on what you're actually going to play on?
Well, exactly. I think it's pathetic, to be honest. I think if you can't play on a range of surfaces, what's the point of, like... What's the point of this?
How they've not got you as a sports pundit. 606 special with Andrew Hunter-Murray.
That was quite Roy Keane, though, wasn't it? That's pathetic.
Yeah.
But it worked. Regardless of the logic, it worked.
That's a good point. They did get because they did very well.
What a huge waste.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that grass is now being enjoyed at this hotel or golf resort or whatever it was.
What was there before?
Probably some different grass.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm not sure people are enjoying it anymore.
They
now.
shipped that grass over to Wembley Stadium.
It's now only good for golfing, actually, because it was a golf hotel they were playing. Yeah.
The different grass makes a big difference in golf, I have to say. If you go to play golf in Florida and they have what's called Bermuda grass, and then you play in Scotland, it's very different feel.
And you're normally in the rough, aren't you, though, James? If you're not in the bunker, you're in the sort of long grassy bits at the edge, hacking away.
Don't try and do golf banter with me, young man.
Sorry.
But it's much sort of more tangly and it's got
Right.
more of a grain to it. So if you try and hit against the grain in Bermuda grass, then it's actually quite difficult to get the club through the ball. Right. Whereas if you play in fescue in Scotland, it's really easy. It's very short. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not stopping the Americans from winning in Scotland, is it?
No.
Judging by the last Open.
Hang on. Sorry, aren't you hitting off the tee anyway? Aren't you
You
hitting
hit your
above the
first
grass?
shot off the tee, but then future shots you don't hit off a tee.
Do you not? I thought you were allowed to pop a tee in the ground.
Oh my god! How many times have I spoken about golf on this podcast?
My filters are incredible by now. I just think the shutter's come down.
You've learned nothing. Oh dear.
Do you want to know something ironic about pitches,
Oh yeah.
football pitches? An uneven pitch creates a level playing field.
Oh, very good.
Oh, why?
Maybe the best footballers good at playing on level playing fields.
Exactly.
Basically, very even pitches.
Exactly. It's
It's
better.
a classic sort of FA Cup thing, isn't it? You get
Yeah.
a lower division team with a terrible pitch, and then the big shot Charlies have to go and play on it, and they can't cope.
Yeah, because you got to do, you rely on extremely fast, precise passing, so the flatter and more even the pitch. And
You've not watched England recently, have you?
Even I got that.
But yeah, as soon as you're on a less even pitch, then it sort of equalises people because it's a little bit bumpy, it's a little bit harder to get those very fast passes in. And it is a hugely refined art, isn't it? The pitch and grass maintenance in football. I think there was a manager, Laurent Blanc, who was managing Paris Saint-Germain in 2013. All his players were getting injured, they were doing badly, and they hired a groundsman called Jonathan Calderwood, and Laurent Blanc credited Calderwood with 16 of that club's points by the end of the season when they won the next season.
And he was from Paris Saint-Germain.
Yes. Yeah.
How many points did he attribute to the massive amount of money they got from Qatar?
Didn't need it, actually. Didn't.
But no, it is a hugely advanced science, and it is actually one of the things where Britain is world leading is the field of groundskeeping and turf consultancy.
Jesus Christ.
Why isn't Chris Starmer mentioning this in his speeches?
It's changed Wimbledon, though, hasn't it? The tennis.
Yeah.
The tennis as a tournament has been transformed by the fact that the grass is not as fast as it once was.
Absolutely, yeah.
When we were all growing up, you'd have huge 6'6", 6'7" serve volleyers who'd smash the ball, come to the net, volley it. No one volleys anymore.
Yeah.
Because the ball's slowed down in the grass and people just hit the ball straight back at them
Yeah.
Yeah.
and past them more to the ball.
And it's like a better game, right? Would you say objectively it's kind of more interesting? Or
Well,
not?
No, I
I
wouldn't
think
say
it's gone
that.
too far the other way. And that
Oh.
if there's a serve and volley, I'd like to see them do well, just because it's now a refreshing change.
Yeah.
And do you know that also they think it's like a groupthink thing because everyone assumed that serve and volley wouldn't work as well on this bouncy, slower grass. But actually, I think if you do choose to serve and volley, I think you're still proportionally winning the same number of points as you would before. So they should go back to it.
Should they?
And one does miss the serve and volley.
A women's game has almost disappeared.
Yeah, yeah.
Serve and volley, the Navratilovas and the various East European Czechs and of the 80s and 90s, all serve and volleyed. They've all gone.
They've been lost in the long grass.
Very strong. You know they vacuum it, Wimbledon. They vacuum the grass every day. They've got a turf consultant. They've got where they measure the chlorophyll index of the. Yeah, they do. This is all part of the British groundskeeping revolution. And British groundskeepers go all over the world. And,
That's the thing. Is like, okay, if you win the Euros, if you're Spain, fine, you've won the Euros, great. But no one can play without a pitch.
right.
And if we, as Britain, are making the best pitches, who is the most important team in that tournament? Really?
Exactly. And there should be points. We should probably start 2 goals ahead every match just because of our contribution, right?
But the sad thing about Wimbledon grass is that when you're watching it, it is in the process of dying. In fact, one of the Wimbledon groundskeepers said, you're walking the line between life and death when you maintain that grass.
All right. Okay.
Hey, you're the one who's elevated them to sort of global renowned status.
Let me give you a test on football, Andy.
Yeah.
Stamford Bridge, Goodison Park, St James's Park, Emirates Stadium, Anfield, Old Trafford, Wembley. What is the surface they play football on in those places?
Grass.
It is not grass.
Oh, come on.
They play on something called Deso Grassmaster.
Wasn't he one of the pioneers of hip hop?
Grassmaster Deso, yeah.
What's this?
It's 95% grass, but 5% uniquely engineered soft polyethylene yarn.
Oh, so it's mostly grass.
Yeah, but I didn't say that, to be fair. I said grass. It's my fault. You wouldn't accept that on one of your quizzes, Paul.
Well, they wouldn't accept that on the final chase where even the slightest error is punished.
But they're technically hybrid pitches.
Sorry, it's
because it's got
plastic.
tiny bits of plastic in, and it just helps the grass stay alive, and also makes it more bouncy, and it's always perfect.
Leicester City Football Club. They're very good, aren't they? Are they still very good?
Not as good as they once were.
No, not as good as they literally once were.
Oh, right, because they were... Okay.
But they got promoted. Did they get promoted last season? I think they did,
yeah.
didn't they? They're back in the Premier League.
Well, in sports turf science fields,
The most important field.
they're out in
Football.
front.
Are you Micah Richards?
I don't... Who's that?
He's a
Pundit Supreme.
former footballer, now pundit.
Oh, great.
He's always on.
You
Match
sound
Today.
exactly like him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Leicester City, they do a lot of the science, behind it, and they were doing a study in 2021 for the European Space Agency
Oh, yeah.
about turning their grass clippings into, because if you pile up the clippings, it creates a lot of methane gas because of anaerobic digestion.
Well, now you are sounding like Micah Richards.
Yeah, you're like for like.
I don't know what's happening. But then that gas, you could turn it into a liquid and then refine that into fuel. And
Good on.
they also know they have 89 newts and they have to count them.
What?
Because they have to protect their newts because there are all these rules about, habitat and biodiversity and all this.
Yeah.
And if you've got 89 newts,
89?
What?
I could have sworn it was a 90-minute game.
oh my god!
That just happened.
That's the joke of the podcast. Like we've done 500 episodes. That's it. That's the joke.
Let's end. Let's end there.
Come on, you set it up with 89. You must have done.
Have you heard of Heine Alemania?
Wish I had.
He invented the ironically named Fair Play Spray. So Fair Play Spray. Do you know what Fair Play Spray is, Andy? Can you guess?
You spray it in the other player's eyes. They can't see. Score a goal. Is that it?
No. Paul, do you know what Fair Play Spray is?
No, I have no
Think of
idea.
what sprays you use in football at every game.
Deodorant?
Oh, the line that the referee
lines.
puts down.
Yeah. So
What-
the line, basically, when you take a free kick, the opposition have to be 10 yards away, and they usually make a little wall to stop you from getting it in the goal.
I've seen that.
To make them stand there, you'll put a little line of what looks like shaving foam on the ground. And this was invented by a guy called Heine Alemania in 2000. And the reason it's ironically called Fair Play Spray is that FIFA refused to give him any money for it. They said, basically, someone else also came up with an idea around the same time, and we're just going to do it anyway, and there's nothing you can do. And he went to Brazilian court, who found in his favour in 2018 and ordered FIFA to pay £10,000 for every game they ignored their order. And since then, they probably owe him about 200 million quid.
Are they paying it?
And well, the ruling was upheld in 2021. FIFA said that they are not bound by Brazilian law. And as time of recording, I couldn't find out what had happened with it.
Wow.
But I know that he does sell them now, but he doesn't get paid every time they use them, I don't think.
I trust FIFA as an honest and principled institution who will reimburse this guy.
Yeah.
He called it spoomy, the stuff. FIFA calls it Fair Play Spray.
So spoomy. Can you think of a good nickname for a groundskeeper?
Willie?
Yeah. Going back to The Simpsons.
So this is the sort of Uber Willie of... You might have heard of him, James, because he's
No.
called George Tomer,
No, I don't.
and it's American football.
I'm into American football, but not so much that I know the names of all the groundspeople.
And are you really into it at all? He did the pitch for every single Super Bowl until the 57th one.
Oh,
He spent
wow. Oh,
80
really?
He spent 82 years of his life being a groundskeeper.
He probably did other things.
No.
but-
I
wow.
don't think he did.
He started very, very young, and he retired last year, age 94.
How interesting, because they move the Super Bowl to different places every year, don't
right.
they? So
Yeah.
That must be interesting that he just...
Yeah.
Was it good, or was it a bit like, you know, when you talk to younger doctors and they say the older ones are sort of sticking with the old ways, don't work as well, and they're losing it a bit.
It'd be a bit of a twist if he was absolutely shit, wouldn't it?
It was incredibly. He mowed it to nothing. He only mowed half the pitch one year. It's a nightmare.
Molehills everywhere.
Oh, that's so funny.
And he said when he retired, when I'm in heaven, I'll be looking at your beautiful field, or I'll be in hell looking at what kind of root system you have.
What a great quote.
That's great.
And his nickname is the Sodfather.
Oh, the sod
yeah.
farmer. I love that.
Do you know what's better about grass compared to trees if you're lovers?
It's hard to have sex while lying on a tree.
You lack ambition.
What's better?
There are an
I wish
infinite number
I-
of correct answers.
I wish I hadn't gone here. I'm
For
looking for a
lovers.
much more innocent, for lovers,
Is
a
it you
more
don't
innocent variety.
bark stains don't show up on your chinos as much.
Jesus Christ. What might a pair of 15-year-olds who are not acquainted with the birds and the bees do around a tree?
Write their initials in
No,
it.
this is it.
Tie a yellow
The
ribbon.
initials.
Oh, sorry.
You can't write your initials in a blade of grass.
But if you did, it would grow with the blade. You know, there's always that thing, which is like, if you write your initials in a tree, will they grow with the tree? And your
so it's
parents
like
always
high
explain,
off the ground.
no, they won't. Yeah, because the tree grows from the top, but grass grows from the bottom. So if you write your initials on a blade of grass and then come back 50 years later,
What's that blade of grass that we wrote our initials on?
The amount of filth that groundskeeper's seen over 57 years, he should write a book.
all right, time for fact number 4, and that is James.
Okay, my fact this week is that the hiring of the first ever African American White House secretary was announced on an episode of a quiz show.
Unorthodox.
Was it an unguessable answer, if that was the question?
They didn't get it right.
Okay.
They didn't get it right. This was in a show called What's My Line, which people who are old enough would remember. It was like a very posh old American game show. Everyone would be in dinner jackets and the ladies would be in gowns with gloves and stuff. And the host would bring in a guest and you would have to guess what their job was, basically, or what they were famous for, something like that. And if they were really famous, you would have to wear a blindfold. But if they weren't really famous, you wouldn't have to wear a blindfold because you wouldn't get any visual clues. And LBJ became president, and he decided that they were, times were a-changing, and they were going to get rid of segregation. And he thought, well, the best way to do that is to start in the White House. And so he hired this person called Geraldine Whittington. And rather than doing a big announcement, he thought, if I announce it on national television, maybe that'll be, make a bit of a splash. So Geraldine came on to What's My Line, and these B-list celebrities had to guess what her job was, and they couldn't, because no one would ever guess that a black woman would be working in the White House.
That's
At the
great.
time.
I think that's very clever. I don't think there's such a thing as a B-list celebrity on American television in the 1950s
No.
and 60s. By dint of you being on television,
you're
you're
mega.
actually huge.
That's true. I suppose, yeah.
They were interestingly eminent, those guesses. I think the guesses changed a bit over the years, but so the panel included people like Bennett Cerf, who won the case against the censorship of Ulysses in 1933. The former governor of New Jersey, Dorothy King-Allen, a newspaper columnist who wrote about links between organised crime and US intelligence.
What will these people think when they see an equivalent of British game show?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Keith Lemon. He was the first person to report on the Challenger disaster in 1986. Seems such a contrast.
It is
Yeah.
stunning. It's stunning. Yeah, very eminent people. And the celebrity guests they got were huge, weren't they?
Yeah.
They had Walt Disney, Salvador Dali, Marlon Brando, Jimmy Stewart, Groucho Marx, Errol Flynn.
So are these celebrity guessers or celebrity
Sorry,
guests?
celebrity. What's my line? When the guessers are blindfolded.
Obviously, you would know immediately Dali as soon as you've seen him, so
Yeah.
they wore blindfolds for him.
Yeah. So the guessers wear
Right.
blindfolds, and you're allowed to ask, "Do you work in the arts?" And he says,
Yeah.
"Yes."
And it's yes and no answers.
Oh,
basically.
Dali would be a nightmare, surely.
It was a complete nightmare because everything they asked him, he said yes. It's like, so I wrote down the questions. Are you associated with the arts? Yes. Would you have been seen on television? Yes. Are you a performer? Yes. Are you a leading man? Yes. He says,
And then the host goes, because I've seen the video of it, the host goes, okay, I just have to say that even though he might be seen as a leading man in some parts of his life, it would be misleading for you to think he was a leading man in the normal definition of the phrase. And then they move on.
It's so funny.
So he wasn't in Gone with the Wind, but he was the leading man of the surrealist art movement.
Because it's really funny. He says, they go, are you a leading man? He goes, yes. The host sort of looks at him and goes, what the fuck are you doing? And then the two of them have this little conflab where Dali obviously is like explaining why he's such a leading man. And the host is just going, yeah, but that's not what they meant.
That's unbelievable.
It's really good.
Shouldn't get Dali on. If you wanted to go in a straightforward way,
Yeah.
don't get Dali on.
Are you an orange? Yes.
Why have you melted our clock?
Just one more thing on What's My Line. Did you guys hear about the sister show, I've Got a Secret?
No.
I'm
This
aware
is-
of its existence.
It's a really fun... It's a tweak on the format, basically. Someone comes on, they've got a secret, the panel has to guess what the secret is. So here are some of the secrets. These are so good. I discovered the planet Pluto.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's again, it's very eminent.
Was that Clyde Tombaugh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
he was telling the truth then.
You would have ruined this show. It would have been 1 minute long.
Let's see if you can get this one then, Paul. My wife's going to have a baby. That was That was Tony Curtis about his wife Janet Leigh, and that was
Oh, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, so this was a way of celebrities to announce things. Like, I've got a new movie coming out.
Best one.
I've got a book coming out, Paul, for instance.
The best one ever on this show was I am the last witness surviving of Abraham Lincoln's assassination.
Oh.
Cool.
It was a guy
Was that
called
Joe Biden?
It was it was a guy called Samuel Seymour, and this was
Seymour?
He did Seymour indeed.
Very good.
Yeah.
This was 1956. This aired. He saw it aged 5, and he appeared on the show aged 95. Although there was some skepticism because he only told anyone about this when he was 94. So
It slipped his mind.
Just never came up.
yeah,
That's so funny.
Wow.
there we go. Sounds like a great show.
The British show was quite tragic.
What, the What's My Line?
Yeah, because you talk about B-list celebrities, and of course they weren't B-list because they were absolutely A-list on account of being on television at a time when everybody was watching the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So these people were launched into fame, and there's a guy called Gilbert Harding who became known as the rudest man in Britain because of how grumpy he was on the show.
Mm-hmm.
He just carried it as an albatross around his neck that he was hated by the British public. And then there's a woman called Lady Isabel Barnett, another one of the regulars on the show, and she committed suicide 2 days after a shoplifting scandal because she couldn't live with the disgrace of Lady Isabel Barnett from What's My Line being turned out to she'd been shoplifting for years. And it's the danger of imposing that much fame on people that weren't ready for it. It was a very real keynote way that TV worked in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm glad that we only get 2.5 million viewers anymore.
Thank God appearing on a quiz show has changed, eh?
Is it a quiz show or is it a game show? What's My Line?
Oh my God, Andy. You are opening up a can of worms here.
Surely it's incredibly straightforward, isn't it? If you're asked quiz questions that require some knowledge,
It's not a quiz question to be asked. What's my line? It's
I
like
think
what's
I
the
think
capital of?
It's a hybrid because you have to be knowledgeable to solve the puzzles that you're set.
Yeah.
It's a wisdom show. Not a quiz. Like quiz shows. What's the capital of Armenia? Paul.
Yerevan.
Oh, James got that one. Sorry.
I forgot I wasn't called Paul there for a second.
What's 6 times 9? 54. I knew that one. Sometimes you got to get in first.
You would be the worst quiz show host ever, Andy.
And now this is for the £1 million. And the answer is Eleanor of Aquitaine. Let's play.
I think if you go onto online forums of people who like quizzes or people who like game shows and you ask this question, for instance, is Countdown a quiz show? That's the rest of your week gone.
Oh, really?
I think Countdown is a game show, and the reason I think Countdown is a game show is you don't have to know what any of the words mean. You just have to know that they exist.
I think it's a quiz show because I think a game show has to have gunge. If there's no gunge, it's a quiz.
Yeah.
You know? Like Gladiators is technically a quiz.
Does Gladiators have guns?
No, so it's quiz.
But does that mean any TV show?
I mean,
Quiz.
I will stress I don't think there's anything better about either format.
No.
I think they're both as entertaining as each other.
You must know loads and loads and loads of formats for these shows, Paul.
I've watched a lot of.
You've watched so many.
Yeah.
So this is a slight game where I don't know if you'll just know the answers automatically. Like, I'm going to name a title of a quiz show,
Okay.
and if you can guess the format, right?
That sounds fun. This is a quiz.
Well, no, because I've got some gunge in the ceiling. Repo games.
Okay. I
this
can't
is-
answer this because I know this one.
Okay.
I don't know what this
Very
means.
honest.
I think it's the only quiz show I know the format, or game show I know the format for, because I read about it.
Oh, okay. Right, Paul. So
No.
the other two know about it because they read about it.
It's
Do you-
quite difficult because we don't.
Do you have
shorten things like this in
to
Britain.
come up with the first words of Emilio Estevez films from the 1980s?
Yes, that's it. No, it's that a couple of guys arrive and repossess your car unless you can answer a set of trivia questions, in which case you get to keep it.
That's like two events in my life combined into one. Both about circa 1998.
But I think in this case, they were always going to have their car repossessed because they hadn't had their payment. They haven't done
Yeah.
their payments. So they were going to get it repossessed anyway. And they're like, well, here's a chance to save your car, right?
Yeah, it's you falling behind on your payments.
But the reason I read about it is because didn't someone get shot?
Yeah.
I think that's the story about that.
But
yeah.
weirdly, you'd think that the people doing the shooting, and they were done for attempted murder, were the people who were having their car repossessed. But they were happy about it. It was the neighbour who was pissed off that the cameraman were
kerfuffle.
parked in the driveway. Yeah, exactly. It was like, get those cameras out of my face.
That's funny. You're in the picture.
Okay, I don't know this
It's
one.
about weeing. You wee on a camera, and
What?
you're
You're
in the picture.
Oh, urine.
You're in the picture. How many photographs can you wee on in a minute?
Is it like Where's Wally, but you're in the picture, so it's
Oh,
Where's
that's
you?
good.
Yeah.
That is good.
That's very good.
Do they show you a famous painting and the main person has been replaced by you and you've got to guess the name of the original painting?
Oh, that's a good
I
one.
think you are almost closest, Paul. It's celebrities. They insert their faces into holes cut out, like those things you get at the seaside,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
and you have to guess the image you're in based on you can ask questions.
Oh, I
nice.
see.
That's a good. I
So-
think that's a good
yeah,
game.
yeah, that's nice.
You know, it lasted 1 week.
Oh,
There was an apology the next week saying that was awful. Sorry.
can I do one?
Yeah.
Animal crack-ups. Do you know this one?
Animal crack-ups. Okay, there is a thing called Animal Crackers. So it's a jigsaw show, and you have to fit back together pulverized biscuits. Is that it?
No, it's basically they show lots of videos of animals doing funny things, and then they ask you questions about those animals, and then if you win, you get a stuffed animal. But I only really bring it up because it was hosted by a friend of the podcast, Alan Thicke. Who is who's the Thicke?
Robin Thicke.
Robin Thicke is his
Oh.
father was like a
Oh,
big
yeah,
TV
yeah,
guy.
yeah, yeah. You also wrote the theme tune to Different Strokes.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And also
One of my all-time favourite facts. Well,
he also sang the theme to Animal Crack-Ups.
Wow.
You've been on Just a Minute, Paul, right?
yeah.
You might have been good in 1928 America, where there was a non-stop talking competition.
Only if I was good at just a minute. That's the only way that works. I don't
Well, you're
know.
not good at it,
It's just impossible.
is it? Well, this one took 4 days. And after 4 days, there were still 2 people left, and they just split the prize between them.
And they hadn't hesitated, deviated, or the other thing.
Actually, they did repeat, which is the other thing, because repetition was allowed. One person repeatedly recited Lady Macbeth's speech until they passed out.
It wasn't Giles Brandreth, was it?
There was a person who said something so offensive that the person who ran the competition called the police and then had them arrested.
Wow.
In 1928, that's probably pretty offensive. As
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And the winners were given to the last 2 people. One of them was a swimming instructor who ran her own dance marathons. And the other one was a man who previously made his name winning flagpole sitting competitions.
Amazing.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the What's My Line with the intruder who comes on? The
I
really,
haven't seen it, but I read
No.
about it.
It's
amazing.
so surreal. It was filmed live until the 60s, which I think was quite late for shows to be filmed live. So anything could happen. And it's 1962, and the panel's blindfolded, as we've explained, and the celebrity guest comes on. It's this Greek actress, and as they're asking her stuff, this man appears in a suit, a very well-dressed man, and he just walks on very calmly, and he says, "I'm the second mystery guest. Guess who I am?" And then he starts talking about a dating service that he runs, and the host, what's he called, the
John Charles Daly.
Daily. It's great. Apparently, he obviously had a code for it, because he just says into the microphone, "We have a small problem. Gil, will you get the relieving unit in, please?"
They wanked him off.
And he said, "That's all I wanted," and then he left the stage.
That's the grand prize this week. It was always going to be that.
That's why we had to blindfold you.
Wow.
And then he said, "Schedule 2," which makes me really want to know what Schedule 1 and 3 were. And then you see men hurry past the camera. But the interesting thing was, this guy was identified as someone called Ronald Melstein, who had a dating company he's trying to promote in this unusual way, apparently. And he disappeared. And then, years later, this was in the 62, and then in 1987... there's this really dramatic police chase, and one of the police cars rams into a tree. The detectives are taken to hospital. Another police car slips on an oil slick. They catch up with the guy they're chasing, who's running a prostitution ring, and it is Ronald Melstein.
Oh, at least they found out what his line was. By the way. May have taken 25 years. But
The greatest contestant we ever had. Okay, that's it. That is everyone's facts. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to get in touch with anyone here today, you can get in touch with Andy on...
I'm Andrew Hunter M on Twitter.
James?
My Twitter is @JamesHarkin.
Paul, is there anywhere people can get in touch with you?
yes, on Amazon, on an advert for the book Once in a Lifetime, amazon.co.uk.
And you'll reply to every individual person who gets in touch on Amazon by buying your book, won't you?
Absolutely, every single one.
Great. Or you can get in touch with all of us as a group by going to Instagram @NoSuchThingAsAFish, or on Twitter @NoSuchThing, or email podcast@qi.com. And of course, you can also go to our website, nosuchthingasafish.com, and get tickets for our tour. We are so excited. We are kicking off within the next few weeks, in fact. So get there, get your tickets now. And failing that, we'll be here again next week. We'll see you then. Goodbye.